Before there were cities, before there were gods with names, before anyone ever thought to write a story down, there was a sound. A rhythm struck on stone. A breath forced through a hollow bone. Somewhere in the dark, a human realized that noise could become meaning, and that realization changed everything. Imagine a night tens of thousands of years ago. Firelight flickers against cave walls. Shadows move like spirits. Someone taps a steady pulse on a rock, not to hunt, not to build, but to feel. Another voice joins in, raw and wordless. This is not entertainment. This is survival. Music is born as a social glue, a memory aid, a way to synchronize bodies and emotions. Long before language could explain fear or joy, music already could. Archaeologists have uncovered flutes carved from bird bones over 40,000 years old. These are not accidents. The finger holes are precise. The intent is clear. Our ancestors didn't just stumble into music, they engineered it. Even then, music carried power, to coordinate hunts, to mark rituals, to soothe children, to honor the dead. Sound became sacred because it could reach places words could not. As humans settled into civilizations, music became organized, codified, and, perhaps inevitably, controlled. In ancient Mesopotamia, priests wrote down melodies on clay tablets using one of the earliest known musical notations. In Egypt, music accompanied the afterlife, believed to help the soul navigate eternity. Instruments were buried with the dead, just in case. Then came the Greeks, who took music apart to understand it. To them, music was not just art, it was mathematics made audible. Pythagoras discovered that pleasing harmonies followed numerical ratios, linking sound to the structure of the universe itself. Music wasn't decoration, it was cosmic order. Plato warned that changing musical modes could destabilize society. To him, a new scale wasn't innovation, it was rebellion. In ancient China, music was a political instrument. Emperors believed the health of a nation could be measured by its music. If the tuning was wrong, the empire was out of balance. Entire bureaucracies existed just to ensure pitches aligned with moral order. Imagine a government agency tasked not with taxes or defense, but with keeping the music righteous. As empires rose and fell, music traveled farther than armies ever could. Trade routes carried scales, rhythms, and instruments across continents. Drums from Africa shaped rituals in Asia. Stringed instruments evolved as they crossed borders, slowly transforming into lutes, ouds, and eventually violins. Music became humanity's invisible passport. Then, in medieval Europe, something curious happened. Music retreated into stone walls. The church took hold of sound, stripping it of rhythm and individuality. Gregorian chant floated in vast cathedrals, unmeasured by time, meant to dissolve the self into the divine. No harmony. No beat. Just voices reaching upward. It was beautiful, and deeply controlled. But control never lasts. Outside the monasteries, people sang songs about love, loss, drinking, and war. Troubadours wandered from town to town, spreading melodies like rumors. Music slipped back into daily life, into human stories. When polyphony emerged, multiple independent voices weaving together, it felt almost dangerous. The church hesitated. Too much complexity, they feared, distracted from God. Ironically, complexity won. The Renaissance ignited music with color and emotion. Harmony bloomed. Instruments gained prominence. Composers began signing their work, stepping out of anonymity. For the first time, music celebrated the individual as much as the divine. Then came the printing press, and everything accelerated. Music could now be reproduced, shared, standardized. A melody no longer belonged only to the room it was played in. It could travel without the musician. The Baroque era pushed drama to its limits. Bach turned counterpoint into architectural perfection. Vivaldi painted storms and seasons with sound. Music grew ornate, emotional, grand. And then Mozart arrived, effortless, playful, impossibly brilliant, writing symphonies that sounded like joy itself. Beethoven followed, tearing down the walls Mozart had polished. Deaf, furious, revolutionary, he turned music into personal struggle. For the first time, music wasn't just beauty, it was confession. Romantic composers went further. They wanted music to bleed. Chopin whispered heartbreak into pianos. Wagner built entire mythologies out of sound, so powerful they later became politically dangerous. National identity, ideology, even propaganda found a home in melody. Music could now unite crowds, or weaponize them. Then came the machines. The 19th century introduced a quiet but radical invention, the ability to capture sound. When the first recordings crackled to life, music escaped time itself. You no longer had to be present to hear it. Performances became immortal. Musicians became ghosts in machines. This changed how people played, how they listened, and how fame worked. Perfection suddenly mattered, because mistakes would live forever. The 20th century detonated music into fragments. Jazz broke the rules with syncopation and improvisation, born from pain, resilience, and freedom. Blues told truths polite society tried to ignore. Rock and roll electrified rebellion, turning teenage angst into cultural force. The electric guitar screamed what words couldn't say. Music was no longer something you attended, it was something you identified with. Then the studio became an instrument. Magnetic tape allowed sounds to be cut, reversed, layered. Reality itself could be edited. The Beatles stopped touring and retreated into studios, inventing worlds that could never exist on stage. Synthesizers arrived, first massive and temperamental, later sleek and affordable. For the first time, musicians could create sounds that had never existed in nature. Music stopped imitating the world, and started redesigning it. Hip-hop emerged not from conservatories, but from streets and turntables. Sampling turned the past into raw material. A drum break from decades ago could become the heartbeat of something entirely new. Ownership, authorship, and originality blurred. Music began to question itself. Then came the digital revolution. MP3s shrank albums into data. Napster shattered the industry's control overnight. Music became infinite, weightless, everywhere, and suddenly worth almost nothing. Anyone could release a song. Everyone did. The gatekeepers fell, but the noise grew louder. Discovery became the new challenge. Algorithms stepped in. And now, we reach the most unsettling chapter yet. Artificial intelligence listens to everything humanity has ever made and learns the patterns. It composes symphonies in seconds. It imitates dead composers. It generates voices that never breathed. Music, once the most human of arts, is now shared with something that has no childhood, no heartbreak, no pulse. Is it creation or prediction? Some hear AI music and feel awe. Others feel fear. If a machine can write a song that makes you cry, what does that say about emotion? Was it ever as mysterious as we believed? Or does the meaning still come from us, from the listener, not the source? Here's the twist history keeps repeating. Every time music changes, people declare its death. When harmony emerged, when electricity arrived, when sampling took over, when computers entered the studio, each time, someone said, "This isn't real music." And each time, music survived by becoming something new. Because music has never been about tools. It's about connection. From bone flutes in caves to algorithms in the cloud, music mirrors who we are and how we live. It absorbs our fears, our technologies, our contradictions. AI doesn't replace music's soul, it reflects our own patterns back at us, asking a final uncomfortable question. If a machine can learn our music, have we finally learned ourselves? The story isn't finished. Somewhere right now, a child is tapping a rhythm on a table, unaware they're participating in a tradition older than history itself. Whether the next great song comes from a human hand, a neural network, or a collaboration between the two, one thing remains unchanged. As long as humans feel, we will shape sound into meaning. And music, no matter how it's made, will keep listening back.